Hi friends, it's Sarah from rufflesandrainboots.com. Today I'm going to do a craft along of a different way to make the treasure gnome. If you'd like to make it, poop, stick around. As always, please like this video so I know you're here crafting with me. So I will be using the treasure gnome pattern today. You can find it up in the card, down in the description box, and in the comment. I'm going to be cutting everything with the acrylic pieces. I'll put that link down below as well, and it just makes it easier. You don't have to have it, but you can also add on the digital pattern right there on Etsy. Be sure to leave your email. I'm going to cut 2 pieces for the hat, 2 pieces for the body, a 3/4 or a 1/2 inch wood ball for the nose, and then I'm going to be using faux fur, some little bells, weight and stuffing, poly pellets and polyfill, an X-Acto knife, scissors if you need them, and a hot glue gun. I have shared how to sew this pattern, and again, all of these instructions are in the pattern itself, including little helpful tips like be sure to cut this on the horizontal width of the stretch fabric. I'm going to be using a detail tip glue gun and just glue up the side of that till the pattern says stop. Now, for those of you wondering, I am doing this real time. If I ever speed anything up, I let you know. I don't edit out much, so I'm not an editor. I'm a crafter. So if you have any questions about how long it takes, you can usually use the video as a guide. So this one took me about 18 minutes. I did stop to answer the door, but you can see I sped the tying knots up right there, but that's about 30 seconds. I added a knot, and I'm going to do this as if you were doing a tassel. So I get asked a lot, how do you do these things if you're hot gluing as opposed to sewing? It's really the same way. So I made this little tassel of jingle bells, and I'm going to put it on the right side of the fabric. So the right side, the pretty side, is facing up, and we're going to hang the tail of this right out the bottom. And we're going to add glue and do this in sections so that we can be sure it's stable before we move on. If you're unsure about a fabric, if it's got a little bit of a pile to it, that is what we call a moving fabric, and you could move the glue until it's set. So here's a little tip. Just leave it alone for just a couple of seconds while that hot glue sets, and don't move it a lot. So you can see I just put my finger in glue. I don't even feel these things anymore, but all right, so I'm just tapping it down to make sure that it is set. Once it is set, I'm going to just show you there's an opening at the top. So this is all closed down here. I'm just going to do the opening at the top, and then I'm gonna let that set so that we can then move on to the body, or the body of the hat. And again, this is real time. Do you like the music being added? On the real-time videos, I like to have a little something extra. Do let me know if it's too loud, too soft, whatever. I'd love to hear back from you. So I am going to set that aside and just do the brim, and you can see this is real time. This is exactly how long it takes me. Over the years, I have tried suggestions of the glue or the sewing tape that you can use and just pull it off. I tend to get a lot more corners in my brims when I use that, but if that works for you, or if the liquid stitch works for you, use that. So you don't have to use hot glue, but hot glue will not fail. I've sold, I don't even know how many. You're fine. It's not going to fail. All right, so now I'm going to go right up to where I stopped gluing and then just glue this down. And again, the hat will be done for this part, but we want to let that dry and set before we turn it right side out. So if you can see my watch, I did make these many months ago, and I've been waiting to share my Christmas stuff with you because I think people think it's kind of weird if you share Christmas stuff in May. So that's why I started a Christmas channel. I'll put that link down below, and if you love Christmas crafting, just join me over there. So I am going to anchor this piece right against the inside of the body, which means I have the pretty sides of the fabric facing inward. I'm going to flatten the body and flatten this little base piece into tacos. And then I'm going to join those where those 2 pieces are flattened right to a point. We're going to join those 2 pieces. I recommend, if you're new to doing this, putting a pin right here instead of just going ahead and gluing it, because if you are unfamiliar with this body style, we are going to squish the fabric down into the center of the body so that we can lay this fabric flat. And what this allows you to do is you get this really nice rotund body at the bottom, and this will tuck under. So again, I'm not pulling the fabric, I'm just flattening it and pushing it down underneath that base piece so it all lays flat. All right, so once you get that pinned, oh, I just moved everything. Let me do it again. But this, again, like in real time, this is me. I've made this pattern, I designed this pattern, I've made it probably 8 times already, and I still make mistakes like that where I'm not paying attention. So now I'm just going to glue this little opening right here in between the pins. And I recommend that you, when you finish one opening, take the pin out and don't wait to close up the pin portion. If that makes sense. So I'm going to take the pin out and then close up the entire portion to where I glued. And that is because I find you're going to get a better seam with the hot glue that way. If you have any more tips, leave them down in the comments below for everybody. I'm so happy that this is a pattern that everybody is really loving, and I love how much you all love the acrylic pieces too. I never ever thought that I would get into selling acrylic pattern pieces for any of my patterns, but it just makes it so much easier, and I'm really glad I shared that with you all. So if you have any questions about how those work, just let me know in the comments. All right, so now I'm just going to finish up this last little piece here. Again, this right here is the longest single part of this entire process. If you sew, you're done in about 2 minutes. And that's just the long and short of it. So you can make one of these gnomes completed with decorations in about 20 minutes. If you sew, you can cut at least 5 minutes off of that. Now I know for some of you, it doesn't matter, but if you are doing things like I do for charity, or you're making a lot to sell at an event, these kinds of bases and bodies are very quick to sew, and they come together very easily. If you are wanting to sew this, look at the playlist that I'll put at the end of this video, and you can see how quickly this does come together with some sewing. You can use a 1/8 or a 1/4 seam allowance depending on the fabric. I'm partial to the 1/8 just so I can get a nice fuller stuff, but you can absolutely use 1/4 inch. I'm using the end of my scissors to gently, I just made gently a 3-syllable word. Wow. To gently poke out the end of the hat. And I'm rubbing the seams in between my fingers so that it lays flat. Now you will see on the brim, I'm going to share a tip. I think I've shared it here before. That's the point that I realize I don't like the length of that, and I'll fix it in a minute. All right, so now I'm going to flip out the brim and then run that seam around in my fingers to sort of help it lay flat as well. Now I'm going to show you where I glued. I have like more of a point than a curve, and I'm going to give you a tip on how to soften those. I think I've shared it here before, but it involves your glue gun or a heat gun. All right, so I'm just going to rub that. Again, this is all real time. There's no editing here. And then you'll see me come across this little point right here where, right here maybe, yeah, there. So I don't like it when I come to a point, like it should be round, right? You can see there's a point. I will fix it. I promise I will fix it. So I did have somebody ask me about putting cardboard inside here, and you absolutely can. Y'all, she had the best idea. She has somebody who loved trains, like building miniature train sets, and she found a mini, like a 1/12 one, and she wanted to put the whole train on the brim of this style hat. Oh my gosh, it was the cutest thing. She finished it. It's a Christmas gift, but she finished it and she sent it to me. It's just gorgeous. So pretty. And so if you do want to put cardboard in there, go in and cut that at least 1/4 inch smaller than the brim pattern and start there. All right, so I'm just using polyfill to stuff the hat. And please make note, you are going to want to make sure that this portion, the hook, is stuffed really well, so that when you squeeze it, you can it bounces back on its own to its original size. That's how you know you have enough stuffing. So here, I'm gonna overstuff this hat because that is my modus operandi, my MO, but we'll pull some of that stuffing out in just a second. If you're wondering about the weights and everything and how much, I include that in the pattern. Stuffing is kind of one of those things that's very personal. I tend to overstuff because polyfill does break down over time. So once you get the body turned out, again, rubbing those seams, I'm just going to use a funnel and add some poly pellets. I get asked about these a lot. I get them from Amazon. I get them from the craft stores. I order them in bulk because I make a lot of stuff, and they're great if you sell items because you don't have to worry about critters or mold or sprouting. Now I'm just going to stuff small rips and shreds of polyfill. I'm going to speed this up, but it took me 38 seconds to fill this entire thing. I just don't want you to have to sit around and watch a full 20 minutes if it's just stuff like that. So you're going to go ahead and stuff that. The small tufts do help you sort of make everything a little smooth, but rub that in between your hands, drop it to make sure it lands the same, and now it's time to close it up. So I'm going to glue up our opening that we left when we assembled, and you're just going to press those two pieces together. Make sure you don't get your fingers in there. And then you can actually just put an elastic around that with a little bit of string to make sure it doesn't fail. However, I'm going to use this as a little bit of structure for my hat. So you'll see what I mean when I'm going to change up how I do the hat. I like bringing you all like just different things when I do these same patterns. If you're new here, I like to share a lot of inspiration using the same pattern so that you don't spend your money on different patterns for everything. You can just get a couple ideas and learn how I design the pattern in different ways to be used. So you can see I'm pulling the pieces up and down on either side of that cone from the brim, and that helps me to position it. I will be positioning it very low, and you'll see why. All right, so I'm just going to turn my little hook to where I want it. You can see we're going to get rid of that little part there. Just rub that in between your fingers and it will pop back out. All right, so let's go ahead and fix this because this is driving me insane. I want it shorter, so I'm going to add a little dollop of hot glue and go back and forth with the thread right through that glue. You could just cut it off and thread it through again, but I don't know what I was thinking. I was probably listening to a really good book. I made these so long ago. Like I said, I would love to share Christmas inspiration year round on this channel, but we've had some feedback that people, think Christmas should only start in October and go from there. But if you like Christmas crafting, go join me over on Berry and Pine here on YouTube. It's all year round Christmas crafting. All right, so this is my trick to get rid of those pokey parts. You just use the glue gun on any part that's sticking out and pull away from the area and it'll sort of even out. Now we can do more later. If you have more in yours, you can also heat it up with a heat gun. You can do it that way. So obviously I overstuffed the hat because that's what I do. And now I'm going to tuck it in and I'm going to be pulling down the cone right onto the body. So we are using the body to add a little bit more structure, and we're using the fluff to sort of fill out around that body. So now once you get that into place, we can glue this down. You can hand sew it down. I've had people ask me that. Absolutely, you can. So I'm just going to do the front and the back. Now you can add arms to this. I don't think it needed arms, but you can add two little rectangles of arms to this and some mittens or some wood balls for the arms, and just add them right underneath that piece. Okay, so now that we've got that glued on, I'm just going to pull down the hat into the position that I want. I prefer this pattern to have the hat pulled down in the back because it will open up the front, but you can just make it straight across, whatever you want to do. For the faux fur, I'm going to be using this scrap that I literally pulled off the pile o fur in my craft room, and it's a little wonky, but I'm going to make it work. So I'm just going to use an X-Acto knife to cut the fabric backing of the faux fur, not going all the way to the actual fur, and you get these nice fluffy edges. Now I'm going to glue down this top piece because mine is legitimately wonky, and it's hard to see white on white, but she looks rough. So I'm just going to glue this down to make it look a little bit more tailored. Better, right? Now, before I glue that down, I do want to glue down the pieces of the brim that are going to hold that in place. So once I have the front in place, I'm going to glue down those 2 little triangles, and I'm going to turn it around and glue them down on the back as well. I think I answered the door right there. I don't know why I didn't show that. But I'm going to now glue the beard to the center of the body. Now, you can always turn this around and hide the seam with the beard, so that's just another option. Now I'm going to split the faux fur to the fabric backing and add on hot glue and a wood ball for the nose. Woo. You can use clay beads, you can use any clay noses you make out of polymer clay. You can use an ornament, anything you'd like. You can use fabric stuffed with polyfill. All right, so now I'm just going to glue down the actual back of the hat and these little tabs on the top. So these tabs are only going to be glued at their very base, so we can cut the little tab part off and it'll look seamless when you add on your trim. Get all the lint off of that too. And now I go through quite a few ribbons, so I'm not going to bore you with that. I just couldn't decide if I wanted the gold to match the bells or the little Scandinavian. I am a sucker for Scandinavian anything, I'll just tell you. Anyway, I'm just going to cut these little tabs off because I do not need them, and I want my ribbon trim to lay flat. So I'm going to add on my little ribbon trim, squishing out the hot glue so that it lays perfectly flat. I'll cut off the extra there and on the overlap, and then just glue that down. And then if you wanted to add any additional items like sprigs of greenery or berries, go ahead and add those on. But guess what? This guy is done. I would love to hear what you think of him. I love how deep that hat goes, but let me know what you think down below. Please like the video, subscribe, join me next time for more crafting fun.